How's it going, everybody? My name is Isaiah, this is Oregon Rockworks, and today I would like to give an overview of the different Orbed Jaspers from the Pacific Northwest. These Jaspers are highly collectible, they're beautiful, they take a great polish, they tend to be really hard and durable, vibrant colors, bold patterns. Not all of these materials show orbs all the time, but all of these materials show orbs some of the time. I'm trying to strike a balance here of giving the details without belaboring any single point too hard. So if there are things that I missed or context that's lacking, please let me know. I'd love to do more follow-up videos on adjacent topics. But for the most part, enjoy and hope you learned something. And if you don't...
Here's an Oregon material I think a lot of you will probably recognize. This is Blue Mountain Jasper from McDermott on the Oregon-Nevada border. This forms in large nodules oftentimes and is easily distinguished by its green matrix, its generally blue color, lots of orbs, and big size. A lot of these nodules will have sort of a clear top and bottom, especially if they're flat top pieces, but generally by looking at a rough piece you can tell where the top is and where the bottom is. So a lot of them will cut like this, where you get sort of this brecciated stuff underneath, and the blue Orbed Jasper up top gives it sort of a scenic look. Here's another one with a very clear top and bottom. Cool colors on that one. Kind of scenic. Yeah, it really has a mix of scenery with the orbs. This is kind of a great mix of both, having that sort of picture jasper look with the nice vibrant blue. As with anything, you know, the unique colors are probably a bit more desirable and collectible. This piece is not fully polished yet, but it's nice for its sort of pastels of purple and pink and yellow. A little bit more going on than some of the other pieces. And this is one of my favorites that I own. Really unusual colors. That bright pink is very unique and fun. So Blue Mountain Jasper, it's been mined for a while. It's not currently being mined, but man, it takes a great polish. The variety is really fun. And all-time legendary Oregon lapidary material. Here's just a few more examples of sort of the typical look for this stuff. Very blue, filled with orbs. This piece may be slightly boring, but it is super solid. Gives you an idea of what the nodules look like on the outside. They're often green. Yeah, that's a cool one. Give this a quick lick. Pretty typical look here. Blue orbs on a blue background with brown splashes. Cool stuff. This material is called Bruneau Jasper. It is perhaps the most well-known of the Orbed Jaspers from the Northwest because the pattern is so elegant and clear. This comes from the Bruneau River Canyon in southwest Idaho. This material forms in Thundereggs and is typically characterized by these cream-colored orbs on this brownish-red background and a slightly reddish rhyolite-style matrix. This material polishes as good or better than any other jasper. It is just so flawless internally. The diversity in color is not as dramatic as other materials, but it's beautiful stuff. This is Hercules. Like I said, it forms in Thundereggs, so here's an example of a full egg that was mined out of the hard rock, and I split it open and polished it. Showing orbs that are a little more subtle, perhaps, than other pieces, but cool to see some of the context of formation there. Yeah, I think this is probably one of the most well-known materials, just because it was discovered a long time ago, and the orb pattern is just so clear. This is one of the big players in Northwest lapidary. This material is called Morrisonite, often called the king of jaspers. It comes from the Owyhee River in southeast Oregon. And all this material comes from a single cliff. The diversity in color and pattern is absolutely staggering. I could probably spend a whole hour just showing Morrisonite because it never gets old. A couple key characteristics of this stuff: it forms in veins. You'll often get this sort of tectonic shifting sort of streamer look interrupting the pattern. You'll frequently get orbs, and you'll often get this sort of blood splatter or flower pattern sort of look. Sometimes the orbs are clean. Sometimes the orbs are very distorted. This can come in just about every color. Like I said, maybe I'll do a whole video on this later because the diversity is seemingly endless. Here's a cool contoured piece. Interesting colors. Bold orbs. And this is a fantastic chunk of rough that I might have the courage to contour someday. Pretty much every color. So this is a vein. Unlike most of these materials, which are thundereggs or nodules, this one gives you a bit of an idea what I'm talking about with flowers. Sort of these splashes of color on top of the other pattern. This material is particularly wild because you'll get patterns superimposed on top of other patterns. So the detail is just wild. So there you go. Don't want to spend too much time on it now, but this is Morrisonite. It's absolutely amazing stuff. Almost kind of makes you believe in magic. It is just that impressive, and the variety is that stunning. One last piece. Killer colors. Bold orbs. There's nothing else quite like Morrisonite. It's pretty special. Here's another very well-known Orbed Jasper from Idaho. This is Willow Creek Jasper. It forms in the center of large thundereggs, has been mined by Larry Ridley outside of Boise, Idaho for decades, and is probably most easily distinguished by its quite vibrant red matrix. This jasper comes in many shades of pink and purple and cream and white and green and sometimes red. This is a cool one, good mix of colors. But you get the bright red rhyolite with the very orby, swirling pattern. Lots of pastels, but especially pinks and purples, I would say, are the most typical of this material. That's a cool one. This is cool with the green and purple. And then on very rare occasions, you can find Willow Creek with black jasper. These are some of my favorites. I think these are really cool. Haven't had many of them, but these are quite special to me. So yeah, Willow Creek Jasper from Idaho. Pretty stuff. Very orby. Here's a cool one that's pretty rare. This orbed material comes from just outside Prineville, Oregon, and it is known as Van Dusen Jasper, also sometimes known as rim jasper. It's one of those situations where all Van Dusen is rim jasper, but not all rim jasper is Van Dusen. This is cool. It's got stripes and orbs sort of laying inside the stripes. You can get some really strange effects with the mixture of stripes and orbs. I would say this is probably the rarest of everything I'm showing, maybe with the exception of Fryite. I have very little of this material, but it is really cool. It also forms in nodules, and I don't have anything particularly vibrant, but the best of the best is like next level. This is probably the most vibrant piece I have, and it's small. There's another variety of material that can show orbs from the rim, known as bat cave jasper, typically with this type of coloration, sort of brown and tan. And on rare occasions, you can get orbed bat cave jasper. Sort of a blurred line what qualifies as Van Dusen or not, but rim jasper can definitely be orbed. Here's sort of a classic example, big old piece of bat cave jasper. This stuff does form in veins versus the true Van Dusen typically forming in nodules. But really cool material, hard to find, expensive when you can find it, awesome colors. From Prineville, Oregon, Van Dusen, rim jasper. Sticking in Central Oregon, this orbed material is from Hampton Butte, which is about an hour east of Bend, Oregon. Hampton Butte is a fascinating location because the material runs the spectrum from true fossil to pure limb cast. Generally, you'll get colors of green and blue, but you can really get any color of the rainbow. This is a cool piece because you're seeing orbed jasper in the pockets of a fossil. And so you get this, fossil wood next to porcelain jasper. Cool colors, interesting clash of textures. Here's a few limb casts from Hampton Butte that are totally different colors, but both showing orbs in a limb, which is cool. And yes, I suspect that these orbed pieces weather out of larger limb cast fossils, but a lot of times you'll find these smaller pieces that are just porcelain jasper, not really giving any indication that they're part of a fossil. And here's a few cabs that I cut back in the day when I was less judicious with my cutting. But yeah, you kind of get the color scheme. Cool material. Neat that you get orbs out there. Sometimes this stuff is referred to as Hamptonite, but that's kind of hearsay. Here's another material from Southeast Oregon, Hart Mountain Jasper. This material is rarer than most of the things I've been showing, especially with orbs. You don't see a lot of these pieces with orbs. The material forms in nodules, and generally the pieces are quite small, but they've usually got a lot of detail and cool stuff going on to make them interesting. This material rivals Bruneau as far as texture and composition. It is just super smooth, super hard, not a lot of impurities, and it's one of my favorites. It's just cool. So there you go, Hart Mountain Jasper. Here's a unique orbed material called Fryite. It comes from Idaho, where the Snake River separates Idaho from Washington. It's got these really unique colors you don't see in jasper very often. Dark blues and purples, almost into blacks, with this creamy sort of mudstone looking shell. Yeah, you don't see a whole lot of it. I certainly don't have very much. It forms in nodules, and it's really interesting how the hard jasper orbs sort of meet this soft, muddy looking shell. It reminds me a lot of Royal Imperial Jasper in that way. But it's really cool, unique colors, and really would be almost impossible to mistake it for anything else. It's very distinctive. There's nothing quite like it. So, Fryite from Idaho. And for the sake of completeness, I'll round this out by showing two of the lesser-known orbed jaspers from Oregon. This one here is called Royal Eye Jasper. It comes from the McDermott Caldera on the Oregon-Nevada border. I don't know exactly where, but close by to the Blue Mountain Jasper. Interesting colors. It seems like it just sort of forms in little pockets in this very hard host rock rhyolite-looking stuff. And finally, this is a Thunderegg from Buchanan, Oregon. This does not have the best orbs, but you can see them starting in here. And I've seen pieces of this stuff where the jasper is every bit as good as Willow Creek, but obviously the matrix of these eggs looks nothing like the matrix of Willow Creek. But there you go. Two other kind of weird orb jaspers from Oregon. Royal Eye, and Buchanan.
Well, there you have it. Orbed Jaspers of the Northwest. I hope you learned something, and if you didn't learn anything, I hope you at least enjoyed looking at some cool rocks. One of the goals with this channel is to just showcase cool stuff. All rocks are cool, but let's be honest, some rocks are cooler than others. So, let me know what you'd like to see next. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.